Hi everybody, welcome to Chapter 10 of our lecture, which is on aggression and bullying in young children. We're going to talk a lot about aggression and your responsibility as an early childhood educator to eliminate aggression from children in schools and early learning centers. I can't stress enough how important this is to do this now. With the age groups that you're all working with and going to be working with, this is something that the sooner you do it, the better. I've made an argument kind of on, throughout this class that, the earlier you start something, the more that a child learns it. But bullying is something that if it's happened and children are aggressive and it's not stopped, cut off, and taught to children how to behave appropriately very early on, there are going to be major problems, and those problems are going to continue for a very long time. So, how do children learn how to be aggressive and how to bully others? Think about that. Most of the time it comes from family situations. Either an older sibling or you're the older sibling taking advantage of a younger child, maybe out of jealousy, or from parents. That's really where aggression and bullying comes from. Think about what you can do as a teacher to minimize it. It's a challenging behavior. It's something that you have to find ways to redirect children and make them understand why it's wrong and how it can be hurtful. And if you can do that, you're going to be effective. So, aggression is a problem-solving behavior that is learned early in life, and it's difficult to change. Most of the time, it's going to hurt somebody, and if somebody does it to you once, it can cause a problem that's significant. And it's difficult to forgive, and it's difficult to forget. Think about one experience in your life where somebody has done something so egregiously bad to hurt you. How did that make you feel? What are you thinking of when you think about it? As I talk about it right now, I'm thinking about something that happened to me actually a few weeks ago that really, really hurt me with a colleague. And even now, I reflect back on it, and the fact that the individual was so aggressive to me, it's something that I'm never going to be able to forget about. It's something that, will have permanent emotional damage, and it'll be very difficult to resolve. And I'm sure all of you watching this have at least one person or a few people in your life that have done that to you. What's important to note is that the attacks can be direct, impulsive, or well-planned, but any of them can cause a problem and can cause scarring and possibly issues with you moving forward. It is important to note that despite what people say that everybody can be aggressive, early on in early childhood, research proves that boys are more aggressive than girls, physically and verbally. It comes from media violence. It comes from just exposure to different aspects of society. Older boys are more than likely than older girls to counterattack, and boys together have more aggressive interactions with each other. Research proves this. It's true. I would argue from the experiences that I've had as a high school teacher and an elementary school administrator that when I was a high school teacher, the most vicious attacks were girl to girl, but as an elementary school administrator, every fight was boy to boy. And it's something that just changes over time, but with the age groups you're working with, you're going to see more of a problem in early childhood with boys, and you have to know that, and you have to be aware of that. So, aggression is done to solve a problem, but it's what the point of it is. I mean, you act aggressive towards somebody else because you have a problem and you want it solved. So you take something from them and you pull it. There are two types of aggression. There's instrumental aggression and hostile aggression, and it's important that you know and you understand the difference between both of them. Instrumental aggression is very goal-directed. You're trying to get an instrument. You have this chair. I want this chair, so I'm going to grab the chair, take it from you, fight with you for the chair. All I want is the object. I'm not mad at the person, I just want the object. This is easy. It's not based on anger. If you're the adult, you're the teacher, this is something that you can easily handle, and if you can't, then you're not an effective teacher. This simply, what you need to do is remove the object or help them acquire the object in the correct way. Instrumental aggression is not that difficult to deal with. This is something that you can that you can handle. As long as you help the child get what they want and think of a better way to get what they want, talk to them about the frustration, show them the way that they're supposed to act, that helps. And if you ignore it, that's bad. I would argue that the hostile aggression is worse, because that's when it's actually based on anger. In what I talked to you about with the chair, the person wasn't angry at the other person with the chair. They're angry because they couldn't get the chair. When you have hostile aggression, that means that you're angry at the person. So older children are more likely to have this, and this is inherited more from family members, from parents, from brothers, sisters, guardians, even grandparents. You have to be careful when you're dealing with hostile aggression. This is the one that scars the most, I think, more than anything else. Eventually, sometimes you'll deal with accidental aggression. In a classroom, accidents do happen, and you have incidents that you have to curtail, control. When that happens, you need to try to set your classroom up in a way to prevent accidents. And we've talked about this throughout this class. You want to have certain zones in the room that are positioned appropriately, where there's not going to be much problems and arguing. I'm big on keeping the computer center as far away from the reading center as you possibly can. That's the easiest way to avoid problems. But if you can explain and show what an accident is and how to handle it without being aggressive, that's probably the best and most effective way to do it. So, different types of bullying. We're going to talk about cyberbullying a little bit more because it's something that the new edition of this textbook really stresses. If you are using an older edition of the textbook, they didn't use much with cyberbullying, but as in an administrative role, this is certainly something that I saw frequently, and it's something that's pretty scary. And this is another thing too, that if this starts at a young age, there's no reason why that couldn't start in 4th grade. All of these are very easy definitions. Physical bullying is contact when you try to cause somebody harm. Emotional or psychological bullying is just being aggressive, but you're trying to cause distress and throw somebody off. Me as a person, in my wit and wisdom, whatever that may be, the emotional bullying always bothered me the most. Physical, I never had an issue with physical bullying, but emotional bullying I found to be probably the most difficult. Verbal bullying, well, words can cause distress to somebody, but most people just end up giving it back anyway, but it's still bullying. Teasing could be good, bad, it could have a meaning, but then cyberbullying is the aggression by electronic media. So the new certification is important because it's bad, it's serious, and it's something that you will probably see. What you're looking at now in early childhood education is birth to grade 4. And I keep saying that, and I keep trying to put that in your mind, but this is a lot different than what early childhood education used to look like. When we taught early childhood, we were going up through grade 2. I don't think I'm going to have to worry about a 2nd grader writing things about people or sending text messages. You very easily could with a 4th grader. So that's something that you need to consider, as this field evolves and as this field changes. If you are in the upper elementary grades, you have to know that if this starts in 4th grade, it's going to be even worse in 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th, and it's going to be a huge, huge, huge problem. So, gender, research on cyberbullying, it's all been gender related in schools. Girls are 5, 6, 7 times more likely to engage in it than boys are. Both girls and boys can be the victims, but girls are the ones that are more likely to be the ones engaging in it. So as a teacher, what can you do? What kind of role do you have? What role does the administrator have? Well, this is important, and I'm coming to you from an administrator perspective. I want to protect you. I don't want you to make bad decisions, but this is the rule that's pretty much in existence throughout the United States in almost every school district. If the student is online during normal school hours and engaging in bullying, the school can interfere. If it's after school and not on a school server, the parents have to pursue police and legal action unless they can show that the bullying affected school performance. And ironically enough, what set the legal law on this was in the Keystone Oaks School District, right next to Pittsburgh. A teacher, there was a website made about a teacher and a website made about a principal. And the one about the principal was done at home, and the one about the teacher was done in school. The Civil Liberties Union interjected. The one about the teacher got the person in trouble. The one about the principal did not get the person in trouble because they did it after school. That's the rule that tends to be the case. Here's what I think. The principal and the teacher might not have the authority to control what goes on, but they can be aware and separate the student. If something is happening and you know that something's going on and you know that there's a problem that's happening outside of school hours, try to keep those people apart. A good principal won't schedule kids that have massive conflicts with each other in the same grade. For instance, if two people fought all through third grade being in the same classroom, you're not going to put them together in fourth grade. You've got to make decisions like that. We can't control everything. You know, the idealist in you taking this class might think, well, you know, we can fix everything. You're not going to fix this. It's not a problem that's going to change, and you're going to deal with it. I've said multiple times so far throughout this class, and you'll hear it again, is that my biggest challenge was custody battles. That was where I saw more bullying and more challenges in early childhood than anything else. We're in the 21st century. We're constantly changing, constantly evolving. Custody battles aren't ending. They're not going to end. There's going to be no way to fix it. You're not going to fix bullying. You can fix situations with individuals, but you're not going to stop the problem altogether. So, what are bullies? Bullies are the people who are doing harm. The pure bully is somebody that has never been the victim of it themselves, and the bully victim is the person who takes it out on others because they've been bullied before. This is very common. Somebody's going to be picked on, so they're going to pick on somebody else to make them feel better about themselves. And that's unfortunate. It's an unfortunate situation. The victim is, a pure victim is somebody who doesn't provoke anything and they're just victimized their entire life. Occasionally you have the provoking victim, the person who will keep going to the bully and tapping them or trying to interfere with them, mocking them, and then eventually the person keeps going. This is one that you'll see a lot of really in first, second kindergarten. When you see this and you can sense that there's danger and there's going to be a problem, you as the educator have to be the one to interfere and stop it. And it's kind of you using your own sense and your own intuition to do it, but it's something you certainly can do. A bystander basically is somebody that just observes it, and they really have an impact on what happens, because in a lot of cases as an educator you will probably have to ask a bystander what happened. If you do it correctly, you'll never do it in front of the two people, but if you keep another child after for a couple minutes and say, what happened, you witnessed this, that can give you evidence, and that's perfectly acceptable, and if you're able to do that, that gives you a better picture of things. So, who's bullied? Children with disabilities are primarily, and we live in an era where you're going to be teaching children and running a school that has an inclusive environment. So you're going to have children with disabilities. You're going to have children who are overweight and obese, and they're going to be picked on as well, and that really happens more middle high school. Children that have any medical conditions affecting appearance, children with ADHD. I'm only saying this, and I even write it on here. I want you to be aware of this, because if you have children like this in your classes, and you will, you need to be aware that these are children that there's a high potential that they're going to be bullied eventually. If you acknowledge that it could happen and are proactive about it, maybe you can stop it and maybe you can make a difference. If you don't do anything about it and you ignore it, then you're a bystander, and as a teacher, that's the worst thing that you can do. How do children learn to be aggressive? The book is going to tell you that, it's 3 different ways: family, peer groups, and the media. My experience is consistency from my years in public education is that most of the time it's through family. But think about it. Family influences the media, because family get to pick what you watch on television. Family also influence your peer groups too. So most of it, a child learns aggression through their families, and then the media will push it farther. But the peer groups are the ones that reinforce it. So you have the family starting it, they learn from the media, and then the people they surround themselves with are the ones that push it farther. If you learn it, it's passed on throughout generations too, and that can be a challenge and a problem as well. So one of the things that you might see on the PECT exam, you might see something about an aggression script. Children learn to be aggressive by observing things. For instance, if a cat wanders into somebody's yard and an older brother yells at the cat, and the animal gets scared, the child now knows, yell at cats, that's what I'm supposed to do. And then if he decides to yell at a cat, he has been aggressive. That impact that we as adults have changes how children see things. So you need to be on guard all the time and set the best example for children that you can whenever you can. And I can't stress that enough. So what happens? How do you retrieve aggression? Well, children remember things from situations and once they're recalled, and then they practice them over and over again. Just having experience and having exposure is something that's going to cause a child to remember how to be aggressive. There could be cues for aggression, and this is really something that's come up in schools, especially in Pennsylvania and in West Virginia. Not as much Ohio, but more Pennsylvania and West Virginia with kind of this no tolerance policy. You bring a toy gun into school, you can be expelled for a year. But one of the reasons is war toys, guns, aggressive movies, those are cues for aggression. Am I saying it's right? Am I saying it's wrong? No, that's up to you as the educator. But I'm saying that, is it a cue for aggression? Absolutely. What a child does with that cue, that's where the challenge is. If children have a large set of scripts, meaning they've engaged in multiple aggressive behaviors and they've witnessed them, they will become more aggressive. If a child yells and screams at other kids and nobody ever corrects the problems, they can start bullying and they can start fighting, and no good can come of that situation. So the big thing, if I'm giving you a big idea, truthfully, crappy parents foster aggression. Parents that aren't there, that are unresponsive, that basically tell the child, watch whatever you want on TV, I really don't care. They're going to learn aggressive behaviors because they don't know social skills. The needs and what they want aren't met because children need a guardian or a parent, and if they're not getting it, that's an unmet needs. Social skills that are ineffective can be taught through the media and through bad parenting, and if they're unhelpful discipline strategies, that's going to hurt as well. So think about this, because all of us have peers and all of us have peer groups, and kind of who we are and what that peer group sort of necessitates for us. That kind of determines what our behavior is and what our social group is. We are a lot like the behavior of the people that we're friends with. We're going to act like them, we're going to associate like them, and that starts in early childhood. Whoever people are friends with, they're the ones that are most likely to click them and keep them acting aggressive, especially if they're off in their own group. The child least likely to be aggressive and least likely to be picked on is the child that is friends with everybody. And if you can somehow create an inclusive environment where everybody likes everybody, you're going to avoid that script. That's really in your hand as the educator. So we all know what a norm is, and like I said, if you don't, then you've learned nothing in your education classes. But peer groups set these for what is and what is acceptable. If it's normal for somebody to make fun of person A, and that's your friend, and you keep making fun of person A because your friend makes fun of her, that's a norm. That can be passed on to peers. There are groups out there that have problems with this and different types of people, and you as an educator, you need to interfere and you need to make sure that you're being proactive about it. We've talked about modeling in this class. Peer groups will promote aggression and they will model it as well. And they'll model good behavior or bad behavior. If somebody pushes to the front of the line in school, and trust me, if you do end up as an elementary school